Okay, this lesson for our Koine Project class, I return to Luke chapter 8, verse 13. We'll look at the latter part. We'll look at a portion of John 20, verse 27. We'll also, I'll mention the feedback we've had thus far and make these observations. So let's move on a little more quickly here. Luke 8, 13. And it speaks of which ones cross toward Chiron. This very familiar vocabulary, but now if you haven't been freehanding it or you haven't been using your Koine and you just want the conclusions, that's definitely easy to do. Toward a season, yeah, then we have Stu, who's seen, are believing. And it says, and, you notice it didn't say but, it just says and. So we have, and in Cairo, a season, Perasmu, a season of, and I'd written adversity, but that's fine. A season of adversity. Feast on time. It says in a season of adversity, they are positioning away from. That's from Oppo, away from, and of course that's how the language here prompts us, from the adversity. There we go. So in John 20, 27, let's say C, I guess it's the last part. Thomas was told to place his finger into his side, and he said to him, and may gnu, so and not, and this is becoming, so do not, it's imperative, do not be coming to be pistos, notice that negative particle there, pistos. So these are adjectives, both of these. So do not be coming to be an unfaithful one. Unfaithful one, but rather, strong break, but rather a faithful one. And I mentioned before, especially pastoring now for decades, especially walking in after a series of pastors over a long period of time where embedded forces were just there to, they used the church as a base of operations for the flesh, social church, very loaded degree of difficulty to deal with them because they were lawbreakers, and that was easy to solve that. But there were people who just couldn't take it, like bullies to certain people in the church were nothing to the men in the church who, like myself, we were there and we were wanting to be fathers to our children and brothers in the covenant, husbands to our wives. So 569, G569, this is the verb here, apisteo, disbelieving. Oh my goodness. Disbelieving. There we go. And then we do have G4100 pistuo. So we have believing. But what I noticed that startled me is that I had always assumed it would just simply have said, for example, it says in a time, a season of adversity, then it would just be really easy to have here a form of apisteo with the ending third person plural and just say in a season of adversity, they are not believing. See, we don't have a form of the negative particles not in here. This is not in this text. And of course, the Bible says they're believing. So let's go. Number one, the Bible says they're believers. The Bible says they are believers. They are believers. Well, let's just go ahead and write it as it, believing. And number two, real striking is because as we collaborate, I welcome any feedback from the Calvinist view. You remember they say you can't believe, period, even a simple form of action, unless you're first born again. So that construct, whatever form it is in today, I have no idea, would also say they are believing. So this idea here that Thomas would be an unfaithful one, and Jesus would tell him not to be coming to be an unfaithful one, would as I think the feedback from Derek Rhodes is correct, that you could say to position yourself away from a season of adversity, which as I've said in the last video, there were people who couldn't even take the adversity of men who deliberately misbehaved in the ecclesia during a business meeting, and they did that to always disrupt and to intimidate those people. And then, of course, once they gained that posture, they just continue to practice it and habituate those dear souls to some of the most nonsensical things I'd ever seen. But I was honored to be given the assignment, and I could afford to do something about it. There were no religious reprisals possible toward me. So here it is. We have the fact that they're believing. It's probably more like they are unfaithful ones. Dr. Jeff Barger, his feedback notices the parables. The sower was speaking of how believers receive the word. John the Baptist had already come through, plowed the ground. It does make me think about what type of adversity was it, because I know there was a time they had to flee, and fleeing was getting away from adversity. And he was telling them, when you see the army surround, flee. Now that was courageous, but still it was striking that they were commanded to be fleeing. And we're often hear people talk about enduring to the end, and yet we had fleeing, which of course that would take courage. But if they hadn't have fled, they would have been killed. So it really, I'm not sure. I know we have a flight, fright, or freeze reaction or options when we are under duress and some sudden alarm or fright comes over us. Then, we can freeze, which would be to our demise. We can fight if we have the strength, I suppose, greater strength, or we can flee. So I don't know how to make fleeing a good thing, except Jesus did not condemn it. He even told them when to leave and not to even go into their home. So here we are. We have these people positioning away from the adversity. So the question that are they really believers? They are. They had to be born again according to this group, or this construct that they teach. We've already covered the fallacy in that, however. So it'd be difficult for any advocate of Calvinism to oppose this, because they would certainly be contradicting the axiom of their Reformed theological position. So anyway, you have a blessed day and enjoy this lesson, but it was quite unexpected when I realized that the word disbelieving, and then not believing with a negative particle, and then not even the adjectival forms of unfaithful and faithful were there. So have a blessed day. Enjoy this lesson.